My name is Hannah Reeves, and the day my mother told me I wasn't in the will, the sky outside our kitchen window was a soft gray, the kind that makes everything feel colder than it should. I was standing at the counter slicing apples for her tea, doing the little chores she always claimed she was too busy for, when she dropped the sentence like a stone into still water. "You're not in the will, Hannah. Your brother will handle everything." She didn't say it gently. She didn't even look up from her phone. She said it the way you tell someone the weather forecast, plain and effortless, as if it shouldn't sting. For a moment, the knife hovered above the cutting board. I forced a breath, trying to stop my voice from shaking. "Why would you even bring that up right now?" She shrugged. "It came up in conversation. And I don't want you surprised later." Surprised. As if being erased from my own family wasn't already a shock. I set the knife down carefully. "Mom, what conversation? With who?" She finally looked at me then. Her expression is flat, indifferent. "Your brother, of course. He'll inherit the house, the land, and your grandfather's trust. It just makes sense." "Why does it make sense?" I asked quietly. She blinked like she didn't understand the question. "Because he's the responsible one." The air felt thin. I was 31. I paid my bills on time. I took care of her doctor's appointments, fixed her internet when it went out, brought groceries every week because she always claimed she was too tired to go. But somehow, I wasn't responsible. She turned back to her phone. That was the first moment I felt something shift. A small, quiet fracture in the place inside me that had spent years trying to earn her approval. A fracture that would grow wider, deeper, sharper, until everything finally split open. Later that afternoon, my brother Tyler arrived. He walked into the kitchen like he owned the house already. He always carried himself that way, chest out, chin high, like life had promised him something the rest of us had to earn. He gave me a nod, casual, dismissive. "Hey, Hannah." I forced a smile. "Hey." Mom beamed at him the way she hadn't looked at me in years. "Ty, I was just telling her about the will." She took it better than I expected. He smirked. Well, she had to know eventually. I felt heat creep up my neck. "Know what?" "That I don't matter." "Hannah." Mom sighed, annoyed. "Don't make this dramatic." I bit the inside of my cheek. Hard. Tyler leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. "Look, you moved out early. You didn't stay close to the family. You can't expect to be rewarded the same." I laughed under my breath. "I moved out because I worked 2 jobs while you were still failing community college." He stiffened. Mom snapped, "That's enough." There it was again. The unspoken rule in our household: he could hurt me. I had to swallow it. For years, it worked. For years, I tolerated it. For years, I believed that if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, proved myself over and over again, maybe one day I'd be seen. But that day never came. Tyler took a deposit envelope out of his pocket and tossed it onto the table. "Anyway, Mom, here's the money you asked for." My chest tightened. I knew that envelope. She'd been bragging all week that Ty is helping out again. But I also knew she wasn't struggling for money. It hit me slowly, then all at once. She was building a pattern. A record. A paper trail. Every dollar Tyler gave her, every chore he pretended to do, every empty gesture she praised, all of it pointed toward one thing: she was crafting a story for the court. A story where he was the dutiful son. A story where I was the distant daughter. A story where leaving me out of the will wouldn't look cruel. It would look justified. Tyler stuffed his hands into his pockets. "Anyway, we need to finalize everything before the reading. The lawyer said he wants everything squared away so the transition is smooth." That was when my stomach dropped. "The reading?" I asked. Mom froze. Tyler froze. I repeated it, louder this time. What reading? Mom finally spoke. Hannah, don't make a fuss. Mom, I whispered, is Grandpa gone? She didn't answer. Tyler's eyes darted away. My legs felt weak. My voice cracked. When did he die? Mom sighed, as if I was inconveniencing her. Last night. Last night, I repeated. And no one told me. She lifted her shoulders, casual. You were busy. I didn't want to bother you. I stepped back, horror crawling up my spine. I wasn't busy. I was home. You could have called. Her tone cooled. Well, you weren't included in the meeting. I didn't think it mattered. The words sliced straight through me. It didn't matter. That was the truth she'd been avoiding saying out loud. Tyler cleared his throat. The reading is on Friday. But honestly, it's mostly just for formalities. Everything important is already settled. My voice was thin. Settled by who? He smirked. By the people who showed up. I felt the room tilt. My vision pulsed. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. I tried not to let them see how much it hurt. How deeply it sank. How familiar the ache was. Mom's phone buzzed. She picked it up and waved her hand dismissively. You can go now, Hannah. We're busy. She dismissed me from my own grief. I walked out of the house, each step heavier than the last. The cold air slapped my face, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. I sat in my car with both hands gripping the steering wheel, tears slipping down before I could stop them. I didn't cry because I wasn't in the will. I cried because, for the first time, I realized they never intended me to be part of anything at all. And I didn't know yet that everything they thought they'd secured, everything they hid, every lie they whispered in rooms I wasn't invited into, would explode the moment that envelope slid across the judge's desk, and he read a name they never expected. Mine. If you're still with me, stay close. The truth behind that envelope will hit harder than anything so far, so make sure to subscribe and keep listening. I barely slept the night I learned about Grandpa's death. My apartment felt too small, too quiet, too full of questions that had nowhere to go. Every few minutes I'd get up, pace the living room, sit back down, then stand up again. My thoughts were a loop I couldn't escape. Why didn't they tell me? Why did they hide the reading? Why wasn't I considered family enough to be there when he passed? By morning, the ache behind my eyes felt like a bruise. I showered, dressed, and went to work because pretending life was normal felt easier than falling apart. But the entire day passed in a fog. I couldn't focus. I couldn't breathe without feeling that pinch in my chest. By the time Friday arrived, I already knew one thing with painful clarity: whatever happened at that reading, I wasn't supposed to witness it. Which meant I had to. When I pulled into the courthouse parking lot, I saw my mother's car in the first row. Tyler's truck beside it, angled like he owned the asphalt. My stomach twisted, but I squared my shoulders. I wasn't here to fight. I was here to hear my grandfather's last instructions. Whether they liked it or not. Inside, the hall smelled faintly of old paper and furniture polish. A clerk pointed me to room 12B. When I reached the door, I took a breath before turning the handle. The chatter inside died instantly. Mom's face blanched. Tyler stiffened like someone had shoved a pole down his spine. My Aunt Karen whispered something under her breath. Uncle Mike raised his eyebrows. The lawyer, Mr. Aldridge, blinked, surprised. I walked in slowly, carefully, because even one wrong step felt like stepping through a minefield. Mom recovered first, her voice sharp as glass. Hannah. This meeting doesn't concern you. I didn't flinch. He was my grandfather. She huffed. This is a legal proceeding, not a family reunion. You weren't included. I'm here anyway. Tyler muttered, "Of course she is." I turned to him. "You knew he passed and didn't tell me." He shrugged. "Not my job." Anger rose in me like heat. "You're unbelievable." "Sit down," Mom snapped. "You're disrupting things." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized there was no shame in her eyes. No guilt. No regret. Only calculation, like I'd shown up to ruin a performance she'd carefully prepared. Before I could respond, Mr. Aldrich cleared his throat. "Ms. Reeves," he said gently, "you are absolutely allowed to be here." In fact, he paused, glancing at my mother. It would be best if everyone heard this at the same time. A ripple of confusion passed through the room. Mom's jaw tightened. What exactly does that mean? But he didn't answer her. Instead, he opened a thick envelope with Grandpa's name written across it in black ink. The room fell silent. He unfolded the first page. My hands trembled. This was the moment. His voice carried through the room, slow and steady. "I, Arthur James Reeves, being of sound mind and memory, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament." The air thickened. Mom lifted her chin, confident. Tyler smirked, already imagining the money. I braced myself. "First," the lawyer continued, "I leave my personal effects, including my journals and military belongings, to my granddaughter, Hannah Reeves." The room snapped toward me. Mom's face was drained of color. Tyler's smirk dropped. Aunt Karen's mouth fell open. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the paper in the lawyer's hands. He kept reading. "Second, the farm property at Weaver Road and all attached land shall be transferred to Hannah Reeves." A thud hit the table, Mom's hand gripping the edge so tightly her knuckles turned white. The farm? That land had been in our family for 3 generations. Tyler had always assumed it was his. "Third," the lawyer continued, "the trust established in my name is to be divided according to the conditions listed in the attached document. The primary beneficiary and executor will also be Hannah Reeves." I heard someone gasp. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was everyone. Mom shot to her feet. "This is ridiculous. There must be some mistake." Mr. Aldrich didn't even blink. "These are Arthur's final instructions." "He wouldn't do that," she snapped. "He knew Tyler was supposed to inherit the farm." "We agreed. You don't make agreements on someone else's estate," he said gently. Tyler's voice cracked. "You're telling me she gets everything?" "Her. The one who barely showed up." The lawyer folded his hands. "According to your grandfather's notes, Hannah was the only one who visited him regularly in the last year. She handled his medication schedules. She repaired the fencing on the property. She took care of him without being asked." Mom scoffed. "So what? She was free. She had time." I stared at her. "I made time. You didn't." "Don't be selfish," she hissed. I almost laughed. Selfish? For years, I'd driven across town twice a week to mow the lawn, take out the trash, bring groceries, sit with Grandpa through his dizzy spells. I cooked for him, cleaned for him, held his arm when he walked. I'd done it because I loved him. Not because I expected anything. But apparently, they expected everything. The lawyer continued calmly, "There's one more instruction." Everyone was tense. Even the air seemed to still. He lifted a smaller envelope. This was to be opened only after Hannah arrived. Mom's voice was thin. "What is that?" He opened it slowly, deliberately. Inside was a single handwritten note. He read it aloud. "Hannah, if you're reading this, it means they tried to keep you away. I never wanted them handling my estate. You were the one who showed up. You were the one who cared. Don't let them convince you otherwise. This is yours. All of it." Silence. Absolute silence. The kind that cuts deeper than shouting. Mom looked at me as if she'd never seen me before. Tyler looked like someone had punched the air out of him. My heart pounded in my ears, but beneath the shock, something warm flickered quietly. Validation. For the first time in my life, someone had seen me. Really see me. Mr. Aldridge closed the folder gently. That concludes the reading. Mom was trembling. We will contest this. He shook his head. You can try. But Arthur filed video verification with his attorney before he passed. He tapped the stack of documents. It's ironclad. Tyler swore under his breath. Aunt Karen whispered something like, she deserves it. And me? I just sat there. Trying not to cry. Trying not to shake. Trying to understand how everything in my world had shifted in 10 minutes. Everyone began filing out of the room. Avoiding my eyes. Except for Mr. Aldridge. He placed a hand on the folder and said softly, he trusted you more than anyone. There's a reason he did this. I nodded slowly. I just didn't expect it. He knew, the lawyer said. That's why he left one more thing. One more thing. But he didn't answer. Instead, he reached under the desk and pulled out a sealed USB drive. He wanted you to watch this alone. I stared at it, cold crawling through my veins. If Grandpa recorded something, it wasn't casual. It was intentional. Deliberate. And heavy. I slipped the USB into my purse, my fingers shaking. Whatever was on that recording wasn't going to be easy. And I didn't know yet that the moment I pressed play, everything I thought I understood about my family would shatter completely. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly, and my thoughts were scattered, sharp, chaotic. I walked out of the courthouse and sat in my car with the engine off, the silence pressing in on me like a weight. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket, heavier than anything its size had the right to be. People walked by on the sidewalk. Cars rolled past. The world kept moving, unaware that mine had split open. I waited until my breathing settled before driving home. Even then, my chest felt tight the whole way, like something inside me already knew my grandfather's voice was going to open a door I wouldn't be able to close again. The moment I stepped inside my apartment, I locked the door, tossed my keys onto the counter, and went straight to the dining table. I pulled out my laptop, set it down, and took the USB from my pocket. It was small. Plain. No label. But my grandfather's handwriting on the envelope still echoed in my mind. Watch this alone. I plugged it in. A single file appeared. A video. Reeves_final message. For a moment, I just sat there staring at the screen, unable to hit play. My hands were sweating. My heart felt like it was lodged at the base of my throat. Then I clicked. The screen went black for a few seconds. Then a soft hum. A flicker. And there he was. Grandpa. Sitting in his armchair, the one by the window that faced the orchard. Sunlight filtered behind him, making him look older and smaller than I remembered, like the world had turned too heavy for him. He cleared his throat once. Then again. Hannah, he said, his voice rough but steady. If you're watching this, it means they tried to cut you out. And I knew they would. I froze. Every muscle in my body went rigid. He leaned forward a bit, his hands clasped tightly. I didn't want to believe your mother would go that far, but after the way she talked to me that day in the kitchen, I knew I had to protect you. And protect what this family is supposed to be. My throat tightened. He took a slow breath. Your mother and Tyler started asking about the farm long before I was sick. They pressured me. I insisted I sign papers. Said they'd maintain the property, keep the land in the family. But the moment I refused, they got angry. Your mother said the farm would be wasted on you. That you were too soft to handle something so important. I clenched my jaw. Soft. That word had followed me my entire life like a shadow. He shook his head on the screen. They didn't understand you. They never did. You're not soft, Hannah. You're kind. And kindness scares people who don't know how to give it. My eyes burned. He swallowed, his voice softening. I've seen you fix things around here without being asked. I've watched you help me when I could barely stand. You showed up. No questions. No conditions. You were the only one. He paused, closing his eyes for a moment. That's why you're my heir. Not because of blood. Not because of obligation. Because of loyalty. Because of heart. I covered my mouth with my hand, holding back a sound that threatened to escape. He opened his eyes again. I need to tell you something else. Something I didn't want you hearing from anyone but me. My heartbeat stuttered. There was a second will. My brows pulled together. A second will that your mother tried to create. I froze. Tried to create. She hired a lawyer, a man I'd never met. They drafted papers behind my back. Pages that claimed I wanted to leave everything to Tyler. Property. Money. Everything. She planned to have me sign them when I was confused after medication. My vision blurred. Your Aunt Karen stopped it, he continued. She caught the papers on the kitchen table and brought them to me before they could push me into signing. That's when I realized how far they were willing to go. The room around me started spinning. They were going to replace my real will with that one. The forged one. And if they had succeeded, you would have lost everything I wanted you to have. I swallowed hard, tears pooling. That's why I made the new will. The ironclad one you heard today. The one they can't break. The one that protects you. He leaned forward again, hands trembling now. There's something else. Something that might explain why your mother has always been so hard with you. I stiffened. This wasn't just about land. This wasn't just about money. This ran deeper. Much deeper. She always thought you would choose me over her. And she was right. You saw me for who I was. She saw me as the man who disappointed her when she needed a provider. My breath caught. She never forgave me for what happened when she was young. And she never forgave you for loving me anyway. I'm sorry you paid the price for our mistakes. Tears spilled hot down my cheeks. But you should know this, Hannah. I loved you. More than anything. And I trust you with everything I'm leaving behind. He exhaled, looking suddenly so fragile on the screen. If they try to come after you, and they will, remember this message. Remember the truth. Stand your ground. You earned what I'm giving you. You deserve it. He looked straight into the camera. And one day, when they realize they can't control you anymore, they'll show you who they really are. My entire body went still. He ended with a whisper. And when that day comes, don't be afraid to walk away. The screen went dark. I stared at it long after the video ended, unable to move. My heart felt too full and too broken at the same time. The truth wasn't just painful. It was corrosive. It ate through every memory I had of my mother's love, every moment I tried to justify her coldness. A soft buzzing filled the room. It took me a moment to realize my phone was vibrating on the counter. Mom. Calling again. I let it ring. Then ring again. Then again. I didn't touch it. I sat there, staring at the dark screen of my laptop, replaying Grandpa's words. One day they'll show you who they really are. And I didn't know that day was closer than I thought. Because while I was sitting in silence, trying to breathe through the truth I had just learned, my mother and Tyler were already planning their next move. And this time, They weren't going to wait for a courtroom. They were coming directly for me. The storm didn't start with shouting. It began with a knock. A single, sharp knock that sliced through the quiet of my apartment like a blade. I froze at the kitchen counter, my hand halfway to the kettle, my breath caught in my throat. No one ever came by unannounced. Not neighbors, not friends, no one. I set the kettle down slowly, my pulse thudding in my ears. Another knock. Harder this time. I walked toward the door, each step heavy and hesitant. I wasn't scared, yet, but something in me already knew this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. When I opened the door, my mother didn't wait to be invited in. She pushed past me, perfume sharp, anger even sharper. Tyler followed, shoulders squared, jaw set like he was walking into a fight he believed he'd already won. I closed the door behind them, every instinct suddenly alert. Mom spun around, eyes full of hostility. "Where is it?" she hissed. I blinked. "Where is what?" "The video," she snapped. "The message he left you. The lawyer said you took something." My stomach tightened. So they knew about the USB. I didn't answer, and that alone made Tyler step forward. "You're going to hand over everything he left," he said flatly. "The will, the property documents, the keys. All of it." I stared at him, shocked by his bluntness. "You can't be serious." "We're completely serious," Mom said. "Your grandfather was confused. You manipulated him. You took advantage of him when he was sick." I almost laughed from the sheer absurdity. "You knew he was never confused. He was sharper than any of us." She took another step closer, voice rising. "He wouldn't have left those things to you. He meant for Tyler to have the farm. He promised." "To you," I corrected quietly. "He promised it to you." Her face flushed an ugly shade of red. Tyler crossed his arms. "You can save yourself the humiliation. If you sign a release, we won't take this to court." My hands curled into fists. "You can't take anything to court. You know that. His will is legally airtight." "We'll claim undue influence," Mom shot back. "The judge will at least open an inquiry." "And the video?" I asked calmly. "The notarized verification? The medical records? The witnesses?" Their silence was not enough. For the first time, they seemed unsure. Cornered. Mom turned away, pacing, her breathing uneven. "You owe us, Hannah," she murmured. "After everything we did for you. After all the sacrifices." "You mean the sacrifices he made?" I said softly. She froze. "He took care of you. He paid your mortgage when you were drowning. He gave you money for your business when it failed. He kept the farm running so you wouldn't lose your childhood home. He covered the bills you refused to pay." "Not me. Him." Her jaw clenched. "You think I don't know?" I whispered. "You think I didn't see all of it?" She turned around slowly, and for a split second, I thought she might break. But she didn't. Instead she whispered, "That land was supposed to save us." I met her eyes. "He wasn't interested in saving you. He was interested in saving me from you." The silence that followed felt like a sheet of glass shattering. Tyler stepped forward suddenly, fury boiling over. "You think you're better than us because he liked you? Because you played nurse for a few months?" I glared at him. "I took care of him for 5 years. Don't exaggerate. I fixed the fences," I said. "I mowed the fields. I managed the medication when the prescriptions got complicated. I drove him to every appointment. I stood by him when he got dizzy walking from his chair to the kitchen. I was there every week, even when I was exhausted. Even when I had work. Even when you were nowhere." Tyler's mouth snapped shut. I took a breath. "You weren't there. You never were." Mom's voice cracked. Stop acting self-righteous. You're nothing without this inheritance. You have no family without us. The words hit harder than she expected. But they didn't break me. Because I finally understood what Grandpa meant in the video. The day they showed who they really were would be the day I finally saw the truth clearly. I lifted my chin. If being family means being used, lied to, and cut out of every decision, then maybe I don't need a family like that. Mom's expression twisted. So that's it? You're choosing money over blood? No, I whispered. I'm choosing respect over manipulation. For a moment, none of us moved. Then Mom's voice dropped to a cold, quiet threat. You will regret this. I felt my pulse slow, steady, and calm. Maybe. But not today. I opened the door. They didn't leave right away. Tyler held my gaze a moment too long, as if daring me to back down. Mom looked past me at the hallway walls, the picture frames, the neat interior of my life she'd never bothered to appreciate. Then they walked out. No goodbye. No parting word. Just anger trailing behind them like smoke. I shut the door and locked it. For the first time, the lock felt like safety instead of isolation. I sank into the chair at my dining table, the quiet settling around me. I opened my laptop again, pulled up Grandpa's will, the property deeds, the trust papers. Every document with my name. Every signature is verified. Every clause protects me. For a long time, I just stared at them, letting the truth wash over me. He left everything to me because I had already given him everything I could. Time. Love. Loyalty. Things they never bothered to offer. A soft vibration broke the silence. A text. Unknown number. I opened it. It was from Mr. Aldridge. Hannah, the court received a petition from your mother challenging the will. The judge denied it before it was fully filed. He cited the video evidence. You remain the sole heir. I sat back, a long breath leaving my lungs. Not relief. Not triumph. Something steadier. Justice. Not revenge, not bitterness, not pettiness. Just the truth doing what the truth always does when given room, it stands. As the sun dipped below the buildings, warm light filled my kitchen, painting everything gold. I looked around at the quiet space, at the life I was building, at the future that didn't require anyone's permission anymore. And for the first time since Grandpa passed, I felt him there. Not in grief. But in the steadiness. In the certainty. In the echo of his final message, stand your ground. You earned this. I closed my eyes, whispered a soft thank you into the silence, and let myself breathe again. Then I opened my laptop and began drafting the plans for the farm, the orchard renovations, the equipment repairs,